It was in the fall of 2006 and I was running the Scotiabank Waterfront Marathon in downtown Toronto. I wasn't having a good day. I had already run 41 kilometers and I saw a sign just ahead of me that said 1 kilometer to go. And I couldn't do it. I was done. I was physically and emotionally exhausted. The only worst thing that I could possibly feel was not being able to cross the finish line and finish my mission. I was done. And I don't know how long I stood there in the road and dozens of runners were passing me and I was just going nowhere. It was then that I noticed on the sidewalk just to my right, a man left the sidewalk and started walking out into the street towards me. As he got closer to me, he began to look at my bib and my name on it, and then he walked right up to me, and then he put his hand on my shoulder, and then he looked me in the eye, and he said 5 words, "Jesse, you can do this." I don't know what it was. It may be his hand on my shoulder. It might have been the words that he said. It might have been my name. But it rejuvenated me. It re-energized me. My mission was alive again. I could hear again, and I finished. Not all that well. I didn't look all that good, but at least I finished. Sometimes we can be so discouraged and downhearted and disillusioned that we can't see and we can't hear things. 2 of Jesus' followers left Jerusalem on the day of his resurrection, and they headed back home to their town of Emmaus. They had heard reports that somehow someone had seen Jesus was alive, but they didn't really believe that. They just wanted to get home, and so they were just scuffing along the road, making their way back to Emmaus, when all of a sudden Jesus appeared and he was walking along with them, but they just didn't recognize him. It may have been the sun in their eyes. It may have been that they were just so focused on themselves they didn't see him. It may have been that Jesus was miraculously kept hidden from them. Whatever the reason, they didn't recognize him. And even then, he began to speak. He began to talk about all the things that were said about him through the prophets, and what Moses had said in the scriptures, and how he had to die and be raised to life again. But they still didn't get it. And they didn't get it until that evening when they invited Jesus to stay with them, and they were having a meal, that Jesus broke bread. And when he broke the bread, all of a sudden they realized that he was in their midst. Jesus disappeared, but they were renewed and they were re-energized. It was as if Jesus had just touched their shoulders and spoke their names, and their mission was alive again. And they didn't go to bed and stay in Emmaus that night. They headed back into Jerusalem. They had to tell others that Jesus was alive, because that's what we do, isn't it? That we, as followers of Jesus, we want to tell others that Jesus is alive and in our midst. You know, we're going through some challenging times these days, and we can become disillusioned and disheartened. We can become so focused on what we've missed that we don't probably see what's going on around us. And there are things that are happening in our midst. No, we're not in church on every Sunday, and well, Jesus was never limited to church on Sunday mornings, or he was never ever limited to a building. And there are things that are happening in our midst that maybe Jesus is present. We can be discouraged, and we can be downhearted. But as Eugene Peterson says in his version of the Bible, the Message, he says in John's Gospel that the Word became flesh. Jesus became flesh and moved right into the neighborhood. Maybe we need to refocus and not so much look at what we lost, but what's going on around us. You know, there are people that are volunteering in food banks. There are people that are preparing meals, and they're dropping them on people's front steps. People are making masks, and they're giving them away. There are people that are performing music, and they're raising money for PPEs and all those things. Young and old alike, they're out there doing something, and they're doing special things. You know, the church doesn't have a claim on doing good things out there in the world. There are people out there doing some amazing things, and I believe that in all of these things that Jesus is being revealed, and we have an opportunity in our culture now to come alongside of those people who are doing some special things, to encourage them, to support them, and maybe even to make a donation and to help perhaps reveal who Jesus is during these times. Jesus is alive, and he's among us, and he's present, and he's out in our communities. And oh, if we would have eyes to see and ears to hear, to be able to come alongside of those who are doing special things, maybe even to do things ourselves from our own homes, whatever it might be. Jesus is alive, and Jesus is present among us. So I have 5 words to say this morning as we end. Church, you can do this. Jesus, you're alive and you're present among us, and you're out there in our communities and in our world today. Oh, that we would have eyes to see and ears to hear who you are and what you're doing in our midst. May people see Jesus in us, and may we help reveal your presence in the wonderful things that are happening around us. Have a blessed week.